All right, now we're going to carry on here with the ChiaroScuro, the attempt to find the bright dark sound. By the way, I quoted Delmonico wrong. It's not. He didn't say. I don't remember what he said, but I know he said profondo e brillo, deep and brilliant, right? Not brillo, yeah. He said brillo. That was it. He said profondo e brillo, which means deep and brilliant, right? And he didn't say just say chiaroscuro, clear dark. I mean, he was doing a whole lot more than that, and he used to use what he called a breath stop method right here. Oh, 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 and then he'd sing that way. And then he would get the ah vowel as much down there as he could, and he would sing. And when he did, of course, all he did was sing with a huge sound all the time. Great big voice. And I studied with him for, I don't know, 5 months, and he said, maybe you better wait for a few years before you try to do this. I think so. I did. Anyway, profondo e brillo is deep and bright. So then deep becomes one of the words. Like someone like Beniamino Gigli and Giacomo Leone Volpi studied with Cotonyi. He was a very famous teacher. And Cotonyi taught sliding back and down. So now if I slide back and down, what kind of phonation are we talking about? I go, see? So all I did was slide down my spine, and I got a sound that was not blatty maybe, but not very dark either. So we're going through all of these possibilities, and then you have someone like Fernando de Lucia, who used to be famous for his very dark voice, and he's used a breath stop method, which means he would stop the breath on his lips and go pa oh, and he sang like that. La 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 la. And Aureliano Pertile, who was the big dramatic tenor, sang all the Otellos before the Second World War and during the war and after the war, wrote a book and drew diagrams of how he did it, and he stopped his breath in what he called the middle of the mouth hole. So you make the mouth, and you stop the breath right in the middle of the mouth, right here. Now, does that make me a dramatic tenor? No. You have to be that sound carries very well. Believe me, I've tried them all. One thing about the German system is you sing a lot, and you sing all the time, and you sing every day, and you sing lots of roles. I sang 64 opera roles there, and about 43 big concerts there of the big repertoire, like Verdi Requiem and stuff, and Das Lied von Erde, Mahler, really big stuff. And you sing so much and so much repertoire that you do have a chance to experiment with all these different approaches and see which one maybe you have the most success with. I would find one that I just loved, and nobody would clap, and they'd go, that was it. Nobody booed me, thank goodness. And then I would sing with another way, and I thought, well, that's, it's sort of a little bit thin and maybe not very pretty. People would bravo and throw flowers. So we don't really know what we sound like at a distance. It's very important to work with people who've sung a lot in a lot of different situations and sung a huge repertoire for many, many years, right? And I sang about 45 years. I'm 85, I still sing all day, every day, when I'm demonstrating, teaching and stuff. So there's no reason why you can't sing a lot if you want to, but you may not always sound like you're 30 years old again, right? Now, another consideration when we're working on ChiaroScuro, if I make a sound like this, la, now I'm going to keep that sound, but I'm going to breathe very, very exaggeratedly, deeply, way down in my lower back, as deep as I can get. Breathe. So the fact that I breathed so deep did something, and it opened up something, and Caruso said in his book, you should feel the tone vibrating on down inside your body. So I did that when I felt all that air vibrating in my body, and it's like the bigger the drum, the bigger the sound. If I have a small drum, it goes rat-a-tat-tat-tat. If I take the head off that drum and put it on the big African drum, it goes boom, boom. Same head, same stroke. But the big air bucket, the huge air supply underneath the skin, starts vibrating, and it makes the sound deeper, richer, mellower, maybe darker is another word. But you certainly pick up a lot more lower overtones, let's say, the undertones, right? And so I'm always trying to have a combination of deep breathing as a habit. The first time I ever sang for my old teacher, whose name was Olga Ries, R-Y-S-S, and she was an old school. She was a student of Alma Folstrom, who was a superstar of all soprano of all Eastern Europe. She was based in St. Petersburg, but her singing dominated. And my old teacher went to the conservatory in St. Petersburg in 1912 and studied with Folstrom, and Folstrom had studied about 50 years before that with Lamperti. So Lamperti had two great sopranos. He had Folstrom in the Eastern Europe that dominated. Then he had Marcella Zembrich in Western Europe, and she dominated in Western Europe and also in America. She opened the Metropolitan Opera, sang the first performance there in 1893. So this Lamperti stuff came down through Olga Ries to me, and I got a lot of what Lamperti thought about. Remember, he's the one that likes sty. He's the one that wanted you to sing a brighter, a clearer ava, more like a baby, going ah, ah, and not so oh, right? On the other hand, I also studied with several other singers. Two of them were great exponents of the Manuel Garcia school. One was Mac Harrell, who was the most famous concert bass baritone in the world at that time. He's on the Toscanini recording of the Ninth Symphony of Beethoven, and he sings "Oh Freund." Anyway, a great singer. And then I worked with Frederick Dahlberg in Germany, who was another exponent of the Garcia school. Both of them sang this way, like this, vertically. And they would sing, right? Whereas in the Lamperti school, it was la, 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 la. Well, both of these schools, of course, were abused. Some people sang too dark, trying to make a bigger, fatter sound. Some people sang too bright, trying to make a more metallic, projecting, carrying sound. And the ideal tone is to find some, if you can, the 50-50, where you have both qualities in your sound, and then you accept, as Olga Ries would say, then you must accept the leftovers. And she was really, really in that Lamperti school, and what at that time was still considered the bel canto school. And your breathing was very, very important. The first time I ever sang for her, she said, "What are for buttocks?" I said, "Buttocks." I said, "To sit down on." She said, "No. For to breathe into, like big weather balloons. Fill them up and keep them full." So if you do that and you breathe way down your back, first of all, you have this freedom of the trachea and everything's being drawn down. But at the top, we're saying sty, remember? In the Lamperti school. So you go, la. When I worked with Mac Harrell and Frederick Dahlberg, they didn't want any sty. They wanted you to breathe in a straight down vertical tube that would breathe so low that the tube above went soft and got very limp, and then you sang with the breath way down in your lower back. That was common to both schools. So if you breathe way down and you let this relax, and then you sing, la, la, how you never go downtown, get something to eat, I'll be back later. See? Or, I'm going to go downtown and get something to eat, I'll be back later. So maybe we're just, chasing bubbles, as they say, looking for the perfect bright, dark tone, or deep, brilliant tone. Remember Delmonico? La, la. See? Well, I'm not sure he was doing anything except putting a lot more pressure, which he could do and get away with. And then after he demonstrated and you learned how to do what he wanted you to do, then he said, well, maybe you should wait a few years before you try this. Then I worked with Laurits Melchior. And Melchior was Danish. And I never found out the person he worked with, but it was somebody who was close to the Garcia school. And Melchior sang this way, straight down, but he also reinforced it. And his vocalise was "Halla." So I would go like this, breathe way down, but no sty, just breathe everything soft and like you're asleep at night. Then you go, "Halla, halla." See? So that "hull" at the beginning reinforces the lean on your diaphragm. And so I would go like that. I'd go, "Halla." And I heard him sing when he was 70 years old with the Scandinavian Men's Chorus in Carnegie Hall in New York. And he darn near blew the roof off in a voice. At age 70, he had one of the greatest voices, well, in history. He was the Helden tenor all time in history. And I sang trying to get money from his Helden Tenor Foundation. And he said, "You are not the Helden tenor. You are the lyric tenor." He said, "A big one. You are big, what they call in Italy, lirico forte, lyric strong. But you're just not Helden tenor." So the fact that I could shake my throat a little bit and sing a little darker, he just thought, well, that's not going to do it. And I must say, I did agree with him. And I got away with singing a lot of that middleweight German stuff. He said to me, "You can sing the easy ones. You can sing the Meistersinger, Lohengrin, Parsifal. You can sing those. And I will sing the biggies. The biggies are Götterdämmerung, Siegfried, then Siegfried in the opera called Siegfried, and then Tannhäuser, and then Tristan and Isolde." So I learned them all with piano at home, because he would always offer me all performances of it. And I didn't find them particularly hard to sing with the piano. And then I went to the theater and heard them with the orchestra, and I said, closed the book on those and forgot it. I mean, you cannot imagine. And then I went to the opera, in the future after that, quite a few times, and I never could hear anybody. I had a colleague, Hans Hopf, in Wiesbaden. He sang those parts, and I could hear him somewhat. But otherwise, everybody else sang it. The smart ones just didn't try to sing those four. And I've heard people absolutely lose their voices in the middle of performance, right? Now, the other problem is if you're doing something like, let's say you're a Verdi tenor. The best Verdi tenor I ever heard was Richard Tucker. And Richard Tucker used the breath stop method on his mustache. And he sang like that. Pa, ha, sang that way. So he'd sing, and it would, it would ring and it'd be bright and it would be round, somewhat round in color. But it was definitely, the way you think of it is it's thinner. It's not as fast, you don't bring up all this lower stuff in the voice. You avoid the chest register of the voice completely. You do your best to sing lightly. And you do a lot of breath control work. The way he sang and the way some of the singers sang that I talked to in those days was they simply would hold their breath. They'd sing like they're underwater. That was Gottlob Frick and Fritz Wunderlich and Tucker, and Kurt Baum sang that way with the big cover tenor in New York, and a lot of them, you see, Bierling used it half the time, but you simply stop breathing and go, la, see? So that's another way to try to get some chiaro and some scuro in the voice. And we are limited by the basic instrument we have also. I mean, Fritz Wunderlich was a fantastic singer and had a high lyric voice, very high lyric, light tenor, but he played French horn 30 years, and he had tremendous breath control and breath power. And he would sing in a way where his voice always had that brightness and that mellowness. He was probably the best high tenor that I ever heard. But I heard a lot of good singers, worked with a few of them, like Nikolai Gedda and You see Burling, people like that, and Burling's voice could do anything. And how did he sing when he wanted color? He did this. Oh, 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 oh. Here, how loose my throat is? And he'd sing like that. Oh, 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 oh. And my voice, he said, well, your voice, it sounds a little too dark. You should maybe be brighter. So I'm only throwing this out for those of you that can understand what I'm talking about. You really need to understand that ChiaroScuro is done either through deep breathing, that gives you the correct ChiaroScuro. If I go, although I'm saying it's got some round color on it because I took a deep breath. Or you have to learn how to phonate your vowels, like Caruso said, far back and low in the throat. So you go, how are you today? See? As usual, there are more than one way to get these things, to achieve these things. The only thing they all have in common, and the only thing that is totally necessary, and you end up depending on it, is breathing. Because even this one, even with the phonation going and moving the back of your neck, you still have to support it. So you still have to have a breath supply. I don't want to go downtown. I can sing that way. But what about the balance of the ChiaroScuro? Maybe is the other one a little too dark? Could be. And you have to work that out on your own. You know, or unless you have a teacher that understands all this stuff and he can really guide you, or she can guide you to find the balance in your voice, and then you remember as you grow and older and get more mature and develop your breathing more and more and more, you realize that your voice has to be carefully guided all the way, because it will tend to get too dark, or too bright, or too metallic, or too low, or too high. There's always something that can happen. Remember, every action has an obstacle reaction. And breathing is an action. If I breathe way down my lower back, I'm like this. And then I like to sing, let's say very sweetly, I like to sing to Meta Butterfly. So I go, Bimba dagli occhi miei Malia, ora sei tutta mia. Now, is that giving up, Scuro? Did I get brighter? See? This is the sort of thing you have to work out on your own. And I wouldn't even sing that role now at age 85, let's face it. I'm not going to sing anything at age 85 anymore. But if I were, if an older singer with a mature voice, I probably wouldn't sing that role anymore. I'd probably be singing something bigger, something where the characters are a little, shall we say, a little more robust, right? So you can certainly sing this way. Now there's my mouth. Now I'm going to breathe. Got it? And now I'm going to sing. In other words, this search for the ChiaroScuro is like never ending. It depends on how you breathe and how you phonate, and do you speak the language? What language did you speak growing up? See? If you spoke a very bright dialect of some kind, your Scuro will be weak. If you talk like you're from the Bronx in New York, and you always talk too dark, and you talk like that, then your Chiaro is going to be weak. See? And then you have some Italians, most of the Italians that we know from the Northeast, let's say New Jersey, all of them come from parts of Italy where there's tremendous dialect spoken. And nobody says, perché mi dici queste parole amare? They say, come dice mamma? And everybody's like this. So they have to learn. I always tell everybody, Caruso didn't speak Italian. He spoke Neapolitan dialect, which is one of the thickest dialects in all of Italy. And then he had to learn to speak Italian. He go, poco. For perché, he go, poco. E lo segue. a huge difference. All right, well, that's enough. Anyway, so at least we've bounced around on the subject of ChiaroScuro a little bit, and we'll see if it makes sense to anybody. It never made sense to me, obviously. But I'm still working on it. I'm going to have it by the time I do my concert when I'm 100 years old. Maybe I'll have it by then. Who knows? All right. Thank you very much for listening. Bye.